And we're live. Welcome to the ASP.NET Community Stand-Up. I'm John Galloway. I'm a PM on the .NET community team, and I have tricked Daniel Roth into joining me today. Welcome, Daniel.
Wait, we're live? What?
We are live. We're live. And we're talking about brand new stuff in .NET 6 for ASP.NET Core. And you've confessed to me you have all kinds of Frankenbits, and something's going to explode crazily.
All sorts of unnatural matchings on my computer. Yes, we'll see.
You know, that's part of the fun. Like, that's what community stand-up started as, and I hope we always stay with some of that. Like, some demo fails should be expected. So I'm just setting you up for success.
We hope to not disappoint then, John.
Awesome. Well, I know you're tight on time after this, and I've got some community links, so I will jump into those, and then we will head over to your awesome exploding demos. So sharing out the community links in the chat, and let's throw this up on the screen. There we go. All right, so these are our community links for today. I'm starting off with a big one. This is Amanda Silver and a cast of thousands writing this post. So this is about our vision for Visual Studio 2022. There's a lot in this post, and this is kind of high level. Like, this is looking at some of the things we're aspiring to do in the next release of Visual Studio. So the big one that got people's attention, 64-bit.
More bits.
Many more bits.
The number of bits.
1,600 projects. I don't even know what's going on there. So that's exciting. There's also some good stuff with inclusivity, with designing for accessibility. So that is really cool. More personalization, and then a lot of kind of like the kinds of apps you can build. Azure, cross-platform, .NET.
I hear that .NET's a thing. That looks.
It's a big thing. I got to give some demos. I got to give some demos with Maui late Friday night, or I guess early Saturday morning. I was speaking in Romania, and I gave a demo on Windows on ARM running on a MacBook with a VM, and my head exploded. I didn't even know what was happening.
Yes, very nice. Very nice.
Good stuff. Yeah. And then I always have to call it. So there's all the productivity features. We have a section in here about what we're doing with Visual Studio for Mac, really focusing on that native UI. So moving everything to native Mac UI, which lights up a lot of stuff for accessibility and performance and reliability and stuff. So wonderful things. Read the post. Let us know what you think in the comments. Okay, this is cool. So Tom's continuing a series on C# 9 features. These are really cool. They're relatively, short to the point posts, just digging into the different features. And it's been fun seeing some of these pop up in Hacker News, and people are saying, what is going on, C# and Red Hat and all the, like people late to get the memo about all that stuff. But so init accessors and records are super awesome. I'm hoping to write some more code soon where I can dig into more record fun. What else do we have? Jeff Sandquist. So he tweeted about this new thing. So this is, every time I've tried to set up AKS, it's a bit of work. There's a lot of steps involved. And so he tweeted about this, and this is an example Microsoft Learn thing where you can go through, and what's nice with this is it'll provision the stuff for you, and this is all for free. So the two things that I've run into going through Kubernetes on Azure is there were a lot of steps in the tutorial, a lot of provisioning things, and then also it's very easy to leave stuff running and spend some money that you didn't intend to spend. So it's nice that this is all provisioned for you and managed and everything, and free.
We're getting some questions, John. People want to know if .NET MAUI is already here. Like what is .NET MAUI available?
So .NET MAUI. Let me break from the script. If I go to GitHub,
that's what being live is all about. On the fly.
Okay. You can start playing with .NET MAUI now. So these are like the early releases of it. It's pretty darn easy to get going with. So what I did with this is I used MAUI check, and it's linked from that README, and you use MAUI check. So it's a global tool. and then you just run MAUI check, and it's like magical. It goes through and it checks what all is installed, and it says, noticed you don't have this Android SDK. Do you want me to install it for you? Notice you didn't have this. And it just goes through and sets everything up for you. So you can start working with MAUI. MAUI is a feature in .NET 6, which is still in preview. And if you want to know more, you should check out .NET. We have regular community stand-ups that have covered this. So there've been we're on live right now. This is a bit of inception, but if you scroll back through previous ones, you'll see we've got some MAUI shows. So I don't know, you scroll down a little bit, but we've had several shows on them, and they also link to them in their repo. So if you scroll down in here, you'll see, so David and Maddie, and just Brendan, like talking through all the good stuff. So yeah, this is where to keep up.
Yeah, .NET MAUI, .NET multi-platform app UI. It's basically the evolution of Xamarin Forms. For folks that are asking, like, what is .NET MAUI? It's cross-platform UI with .NET. It's evolution of Xamarin Forms, but extended to desktop scenarios with a modernized architecture. And yeah, you can try it out in preview now. Like it's available with the .NET 6 early previews. It's still pretty early with .NET MAUI, so just to set expectations, like expect some rough edges. But yeah, it is available to try now.
But and I think the picture in this blog post really kind of sums it up pretty well. The idea is writing the same app in XAML, mobile, desktop, running on Windows with WinUI 3, running on Mac with Catalyst, running all the places. So it's cross-platform client applications, which is
cool.
For
folks asking about VS 2022, that's not available in preview yet. They just posted a vision blog post about what's coming. Preview should be coming soon.
Yep. So this is where we're going, and read the post. It goes into the details on that. All right, let me keep moving along. I want to give you time for your demos.
Sorry.
Okay, so Laurent talking about accessing Dapr secrets using or secret building block using the Dapr .NET SDK. So the scenario he's walking through here is he has Twitter API keys that he needs to store, and using a Dapr sidecar, you can then securely access that. So he goes through and shows how to set that up. Shows, for instance, here he's got a secrets JSON, and then shows, starting up, configuring the Dapr sidecar, and then accessing it. So pretty cool. It's neat to see Dapr, and I'm learning more about how to think about it as part of a distributed application. So got a couple of good ones here. Meaty posts on integration tests. So this is integration tests using SQL Server and Docker. SQL Server is available as a Docker image. You can see from the scroll bar, this is a big post. There's a lot of code here. There's a lot of walkthrough. Yeah. So I'm not going to review this entire post. I'm going to say it's very interesting. There's a lot going on. It's like I said, there's a lot of code. It includes all the stuff. But the goal here is to be able to run your integration tests against a database. So not an in-memory database. This is a real, you want to test how things are going to run against a SQL Server instance. And the great thing with Docker is spin it up, run your test, kill it. You can spin up a new instance of your Docker container every test instantiation. So a lot of stuff here. Great post. Another in the mini 2 block of integration testing is Anthony, and he's talking about using Calzolari, which I probably said wrong, which is a project he set up for Fluent integration tests. And so here's his the end goal is we're writing integration tests that look like this, and so he shows how to go through and set that up. Configuring with any framework, Fluent assertion.web, and XUnit. So again, anything with integration tests is usually a pretty non-trivial post, and there's some stuff set up here, but as always, he includes a link over to his GitHub code, and nice post. All right. rendering dynamic content in Blazor WebAssembly using dynamic content.
Oh, yes.
So Christopher walking through a use case. So first he shows setting up and displaying grid that could be templated. So he shows a, let me see, where's my, trying to find here. He shows out like writing out multiple things. And then he goes through and shows moving that into, I'm scrolling way too fast and trying to move through quickly. But he shows moving that into components. So moving those into templates. So that is pretty neat. A template, I have not done a whole bunch with these template. I've looked at code, but I have not written templated components. They look pretty cool.
They are, yeah. You get a little snippet of Razor that you can just like stamp out wherever you want in your component. Yeah, it's a nice feature.
Very nice. Okay. So Andrew has been doing a series on configuration values in ASP.NET Core. And some of the things recently he's looked at are things like being able to see where your values are coming from, like tracing and debugging and understanding them. What's interesting here is you may have had a configuration value that's overwritten by something else because it's kind of layered in different, it's kind of last one wins precedents. And so here he's looking at being able to look up those values. So he does a recap of recent blog posts, looking at this Git debug view, which is on the iConfiguration root. So he shows that. And then he's shown also using the Octane library. That was a previous post, which gives you this kind of nicer thing. And here he showed doing that from command line. So being able to, from your startup, configure that and view your configuration values. And then he shows this beautiful layering diagram. And then now he's showing extending all of that and showing the actual overridden values as well. Need to kind of splunk through and trace all the stuff to make sure that you've actually got all the configuration that's provided. So quite a bit here, but this is definitely useful, especially if you're trying to debug, why is my configuration value this? I expected something else. So, all right. And then we're actually, these ones are all hoaxes because they were just things I linked to. So this is you. This is your blog post. Very, very nice.
Oh, man. So, I wish I still looked like that. That would be nice. Like, should probably.
Okay, so I'm gonna turn it over to you because you've got a whole slide presentation talking through something.
I got a whole thing. We'll see how much we get through, and we'll see how much actually works.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So hi everyone. So I'm Dan Roth, I'm program manager on the ASP.NET team, and it's great to be here on the community stand-up again. We're going to be talking about what's coming to ASP.NET Core in .NET 6. And I created this diagram for a different presentation about all this stuff that's in ASP.NET Core. It's pretty shocking. Like I remember when we started with .NET Core 1, the first version of ASP.NET Core, it did not look like this. But now that we're up to .NET 5, like ASP.NET Core is your modern web framework for .NET. It's got pretty much everything you need to build UI, to build backend services under the hood. We've got a powerful and flexible hosting model. You got high performance servers with Kestrel and IIS. We support HTTP sys. And of course, we got a rich set of built-in middleware that just comes out of the box. So a lot of great stuff in ASP.NET Core. But of course, there's always room to make it better. And so that's what we're working on for .NET 6. The next wave of improvements to .NET web development is coming in .NET 6 later this year. The work plan for .NET 6 is actually broken down into various themes that are published on a public site, on the Themes of .NET site, which happens to be a Blazor site, by the way. So if you're curious about what our planning is, it's actually an open planning that we're doing for .NET 6. We're trying to be as transparent as possible about what we hope to accomplish. Of course, we'll see how far along we get with that. Plans always do change. But the main themes for .NET 6 are making it easier for new developers to get started with .NET, expanding support for building cross-platform native client apps with .NET MAUI, ensuring that .NET has everything you need to run natively in the cloud, ensuring that enterprises relying on long-term support, LTS support, have a smooth upgrade path. .NET 6 will be our next LTS release. We're working on strengthening the .NET ecosystem, making development with .NET faster and more productive. We'll talk about that today. And then lastly, just making sure that we continue to deliver on all the promises of the .NET platform, basically finishing all the stuff that we've started and making sure it's good and solid and has a really great experience for developers. Now, ASP.NET Core has a part to play in pretty much all of the .NET 6 themes. And to make it easier to find all of the ASP.NET Core related work, we've collected all the relevant GitHub issues into the ASP.NET Core in .NET 6 roadmap issue, which is linked to from the Themes of .NET site. So you can go to Themes of .NET and just click on the ASP.NET Core roadmap issue, and that will show you all the things that we're working on. How did we this? What's that?
Can you go back to that real quick? Okay, so the naming is slightly clumsy, but people ask us about this all the time, and so I just want to. It's ASP.NET Core and .NET 6. So it's not .NET Core 6 like we've gone from .NET Core 3. We just went to .NET 5 and now .NET 6. But the name of the product is still ASP.NET Core.
The name of the ASP.NET Core is the framework is still named ASP.NET Core. All those namespaces are still ASP.NET Core. .NET 6. Oh, really? .NET 5 actually is really .NET Core. Like if you're following the .NET Core train, .NET 6 was really the next version. .NET 5 was really the next version of .NET Core. But we changed the name to simplify it to really signal that this is the future path. Like .NET Framework is still there. It's in Windows and it'll be supported as long as it ships in Windows, which there's no plans to ever remove it. But there's not ever going to be like a .NET Framework 5. The plan is that the future of investment for .NET is on the .NET Core-based stack. And so to signal that, we call it .NET 5 now, and then .NET 6, .NET 7. That's the name for the platform. But ASP.NET Core is a web framework, still called ASP.NET Core.
All right.
Naming is hard, right? It's one of the hardest problems in computer science.
Well, part of the thing way back when, we actually announced the original release of what was ASP.NET Core 1. The original name for it we talked about was ASP.NET 5.
I don't know what you're talking about. That never happened.
I know.
We've gone to all
there
those
are
websites,
reasons.
erase that from history.
Yep. All right, let's move on to the fun stuff.
All right, cool. I just want to make sure everyone understands how did we decide on this work, because I think that's important. We picked these themes and these specific work items based on feedback from the community, from folks like you. And we want to continue to invite you to participate not only in the planning process, but in the execution process now as we go to implement these features. And there's lots of ways that you can participate. Your thumbs up on GitHub issues, they do matter. So please do that if there's an issue that's important to you. Comment on issues with details about your scenarios, your requirements, how the issue impacts you. We do look at that information and evaluate that. We're going to be, you should already be seeing design proposals showing up on the GitHub issues for the work that we're doing in .NET 6. Take a look at those proposals. See if that proposal works for your specific scenarios. Comment on the implementation PRs. We want your feedback there. And then, of course, try out the preview releases. .NET 6 previews are already coming out. They're going to come out every month from now until we ship in November. Try them out and give us feedback on the actual implementations. This is a screenshot of a tool that we actually use internally to rank our backlog for ASP.NET Core. And it does a ranking based on the GitHub reactions, the number of comments, and also our best assessment of the issue's impact. Like we look at issues and try to evaluate, like how many users does this impact? How blocking is it for those users when they hit this? And that all gets factored into how we look at our backlog. Now, this isn't the only way that we look at our backlog. There's other factors that come into play, but it is an important one, and it's one that you can influence. So please give us your feedback, comment, give thumbs ups. That's all very, very helpful. All right, with that, let's take a look at what's actually coming in .NET 6. So getting started with ASP.NET Core. In .NET 6, we want it to be easier than it's ever been before. We're dramatically simplifying what is required to build your first ASP.NET Core app. You should be able to build your first app with one file, with a single file, and just a few lines of code. We're simplifying the ASP.NET Core hosting model to make this possible, and we're adding support for building APIs with minimal effort that don't compromise on features or productivity, but still avoid a lot of unnecessary ceremony. As your app grows, you can still evolve to use the well-established patterns that we have today for large maintainable apps. All right, so let's take a look at this. Let's see what it's going to take now to get started with ASP.NET Core in .NET 6. All right, so I have, this is Visual Studio Code, and I just have an empty folder open. This is Min Web App, and I'm starting with Visual Studio Code here because we think this is a really natural place for a lot of developers that are new to .NET and new to ASP.NET Core to get exposed to .NET for the first time. And I've got .NET 6 installed. I actually have a build of .NET 6 Preview 4, which has not been shipped yet, but it's got some new fancy stuff in it that I want to take advantage of. And I'm just going to create a new empty web application. So .NET New Web, that's going to use our empty web app template, and we'll let that go ahead and generate. All right, now but for empty, this doesn't look completely empty. I mean, we got this startup file, we got these app settings files, we got this properties folder, and of course, Visual Studio Code is kind enough to show me my bin and OBJ folders. Let's just delete all that. I don't want any of that. I want a truly empty app. In fact, let's go into Program CS, and we're just going to delete all the code. There. Okay. That looks much better. That is an empty web application. All right. Now, I am going to add one thing back. We'll do one little thing. This won't be necessary when we actually ship. This feature is not even actually in the .NET 6 builds yet, but I'm going to add just one package. This demo is based on the Feather HB prototype, if you're familiar with that. Some work by David Fowler and a bunch of other folks. That package won't be necessary when we actually ship, but at least for now, it is. So all we've got then is we've got a project that targets .NET 6. Got that one package. Ignore that for now. That won't need to be there when we actually ship. And an empty program CS file. Let's go ahead and create our app. So app, and let's create a web application. And hopefully Visual Studio Code will resolve that namespace for me. It does. And we're just going to create it. All right. And then we're going to await app.run async to run the app. And that to do it. And now I'm going to .NET watch my application. So yeah, we're using C#9 top-level programs here to simplify our lives a little bit. Let's go ahead and open up the browser, and you can see we have a running app. It doesn't do anything yet, doesn't have any endpoints, but it is actually running. Like, we do have a server that is listening on an address with just 3 lines of code. Okay, and we don't have any endpoints yet, so that's why we can't actually hit anything. But that is all you're going to need to build an ASP.NET Core app. Let's go ahead and add an endpoint. So I'm going to app.map.get. Let's add the endpoint to the root of the application. And it looks like, based on the IntelliSense, I can add a request delegate here. So let's add a little Lambda expression that takes the HTTP context, and we're going to do something with it. Let's just write to the response stream. So response, write async. And I think I need to resolve a namespace for that. Yep. And we'll just say, hello. Hello, everyone. All right. And that should be good. .NET Watch is doing its thing. And it looks like it started. And so now if I refresh the browser, okay, we now have our first endpoint. All right, cool. So very simple, very lightweight. Yeah, but I mean,
so like from some of the chat, you know, some people are like, I don't like the style or whatever, but I think there's a real, like, so obviously like Razor pages and MVC are still available. Like if you're writing a web application, in most cases, you're going to want to use that sort of thing. But
oh yeah, the stuff that you know,
yeah,
is not changing. Like we are not going to break anything for the stuff that you know. So like API controllers, having a startup class, that factoring, you can grow. Like you can start, like if you're a new user who's never done ASP.NET Core before, getting confronted with all those concepts can be kind of overwhelming. This is a way to just have a smoother on-ramp. Like you just want to get your first app running. You just want to stand up some endpoints. Once you get to like, you know, a couple of resources, you're probably going to want to factor those out into something like a controller. Maybe you decide to factor out your startup logic into a startup class, so that's easier to maintain with a larger team and all those things. But instead of having that big cliff to jump up in order just to get started, this is trying to create a smoother path.
Cool.
And web UI, yeah, actually, we'll get there. Like, just give me a second.
Yeah.
We'll get to web UI in just a second. Okay, now I'm going to call it the coding with request delegates is pretty low level. Like if you're writing an API controller, you don't mess around with the HTTP context directly, typically. Typically, you'd actually have like a method that takes no parameters, and then maybe you just like return a string, right? And that would be the simplest way to return some text content. And this is actually something that we want to enable with .NET 6. So this line of code will work when we ship. It doesn't work currently because of a C# limitation, where C# can't actually tell the return type of that Lambda expression. So we can let me copy. Let me put this here in a comment just to say that's what we're aspiring to. And then let's work around the issue for now. Now, this is something that we're actually planning to fix in C# 10, so you won't have to do this, but for now we do. And this will come with .NET 6, but for now we're going to add a little workaround to actually cast the return type to func string. Okay, and just to show that this is actually doing something, let's change the route to hello, and I'm going to browse to /hello. Actually, let's browse to the root to show that there's nothing there now. Okay, there's nothing at that route. And if we go to /hello, we're all good. Okay, so that's what we're trying to head towards. And we can do more than just return strings. Like you want to return, obviously, complex objects and have JSON and all that stuff. So let's define a little record type here. Let's do a dog, since everyone is getting a dog these days. Right? John, have you got your dog yet?
I don't have a dog quite yet.
No dog yet? Everyone's supposed to be getting a dog. I know. I go into meetings, everyone's having to chase their puppies around their house because all got dogs. All right, let's add another endpoint, app.map get, and we'll get a dog, like everyone else in the pandemic. And we want to have a little Lambda expression here that returns a new dog. And we'll call our dog Fluffy. And in honor of Ryan Novak, we'll make it a corgi. And of course, this won't compile yet because of the return type. So that's what we're aiming for. We want to be able to do this. So let's go ahead and comment this out so that we keep in mind what we want to be able to get to. And let's have over here. Let's return func. Oh my gosh, I can't type. Func of dog. There, and then we just wrap that up. Okay, so we just basically have a Lambda expression that's returning a dog. And hopefully, yeah, that should work. And ta-da! Okay, so now we're getting our dog. And you can see it's already being formatted as JSON automatically. We just handle that stuff for you. Now you can also bind, make myself a little bit more space. You can also bind to like route values and input values. For example, let's say instead of just hello, we wanted to actually be able to bind to a name here, like something like this, just binding to route values. That's pretty normal in ASP.NET Core. Normally, the way you would do that is you would just add a string parameter to your API controller action, a string name. Even in a controller action, this wouldn't be enough. You typically have to attribute it to say that I want this to come specifically from the routes, from the route information. Okay, and then over here we would use some like string interpolation to say like hello name wherever you are, right? And then now we're returning a string. We're taking a string and returning a string, so we got to do that workaround again. Okay, so that's a little bit hairy. Let's remind ourselves what this is supposed to look like. We don't want all this stuff. We want none of this func stuff. And in fact, I just found today that there's even a change where they're working on trying to even get rid of this from route attribute. So ideally, when we ship .NET 6, it would just be that, which looks pretty clean.
Yeah.
You can see that this still isn't compiling, though, even with all the ugly workaround stuff. And that's because you can't actually add parameter attributes and Lambda expressions today. That's something, again, we're going to try and fix that in C# 10. For now, we can work around this by using just a local function. So I'm going to add a little function here like getMessage. And then I'm just going to copy this thing and put that as the body of my local function. Great. And then we can just pass in the name of our local function here. That, let's do it. Oh, I'm missing a namespace. We all good now, .NET Watch? .NET Watch says yes. Okay, so we should be able to go to hello and still see hello. And now if I go to like /hello world, we get binding to route value. So you can get
very nice
values as well. Now that's
I'm not seeing near enough demo fails yet, by the way.
We'll get there, I'm sure. That's APIs, but of course you can do UI as well. And the UI model is the same. Like this, it's really no different. Wiring it up is really simple. If let's say we want to add a Razor page to this app. Razor pages is really nice for getting started because it's just a single CSS/HTML file. To do a Razor page, we actually need to add the Razor pages services. Like there's a bunch of services to set up, the MVC stuff under the covers. So we need a builder in that case. So let's do web application.create builder this time. and then we'll grab we get access to the services collection right here on our builder. Okay, and so now we can add Razor pages, and for some reason, there we go. So there's our namespace, and then down below in our routing information, we say app.map Razor pages, and that's all we need to set up Razor pages. So now we should be able to go and just add a folder, and let's add a Razor page. Let's call it time.cshtml, because everyone knows that the most important Razor page is printing out the time on the server. Every Razor page needs to have that page at the top, and then we'll just add some HTML in here. I'm putting in all the HTML headers because I don't have a layout, but that's fine. And then let's go ahead and put a header that will print datetime.now. Okay, and then I think I forgot one thing, which is I need to actually build the app now. Instead of just creating the builder and building the app all in one step, I'm going to actually do builder.build, and that will create the web application for me. And hopefully that will do its thing. Yep, looks like that's good. And now we can go to /time, right, would be the route. And there it is. So there's UI, and it's just a page and a couple lines of code to set up Razor pages in the application. So yeah, this is we hope is a simpler way to get started. We are leveraging a bunch of things here. Some new C# features also coming. And we hope this will make people's on-ramp easier. And then once your app gets bigger and you've got lots of code that you want to factor into classes, then you can, of course, do that. You grow up to the API controller pattern. So
I like how this is, because things over time, like when ASP.NET Core started, like way back in the DNX and Project K thing, it was like they were pretty small and you almost could write it by hand. And then over time, the configuration and all the namespaces and everything kind of grew. And File New Project is kind of meaty. And so it's really nice to see this kind of simplified down if I want it, right? And like you said, both the getting started and the, just if I've got a bunch of tiny little microservices, being able to write a microservice in 20 lines of code or whatever is pretty cool.
For simple things, it's simple. For things that get big and you need to actually scale up the app, we already have the structure for that. What we don't really have a great story for is, what if I just need one API? Why do I have to have all these files? You won't need all those files anymore in .NET 6. That's the idea. If you don't like it, of course, you can continue to use the existing patterns that are there today.
Cool.
All right, so that's minimal APIs, sorry. What else are we doing? Okay, so once you've gotten started with your application, we want to make sure you have a fast and fluid and iterative dev experience. So in .NET 6, we're doing a bunch of work to speed up build times and to also make development more productive. We're making optimizations across the .NET platform to speed up builds and to improve app startup performance. One of these optimizations is switching our Razor compiler from its current two-phase approach to use the new source generators feature from Roslyn, which makes building your views, your pages, and your Blazor components much, much faster. This work also paves the way to finally support Visual Studio Edit and Continue in Razor files in .NET 6. So that's coming in this release as well. And we're also adding support for .NET Hot Reload in .NET 6. This is not just for web. This is across the stack for mobile, desktop, web. Hot Reload is the ability to rapidly update the code of your app while it's running without losing any of the app state. ASP.NET Core and Blazor will fully support Hot Reload in .NET 6. So whether you're doing Razor pages or MVC or Blazor, you'll get .NET Hot Reload in the .NET 6 timeframe. I think Safia showed a little bit of that last week, but I'll show it again. But just real quick, these are the performance numbers that we're now seeing for Razor build performance with the new Razor compiler based on source generators. And smaller here is better. And you can see that with the new compiler, build times are twice as fast, which is fabulous. All right, let's take a look at Hot Reload for those who missed it, who didn't see it. It was sort of tucked in with a talk on Octane. Let me open up a different project. I have this Blazor server app already created. There we go. Okay, and what do we want to do here? Actually, yeah, I think this one, did I already mess around with this app? Make sure I've already touched this. No, looks good. Okay, so let's go ahead and open up a command prompt. And to get this running, I'm just going to run .NET Watch. And this app actually has one additional little tweak to it over your vanilla Blazor server app, which is when I created it, the template added this hot reload profile for ASP.NET Core. So this is what's turning on hot reload for this app. You can also turn it off if you decide hot reload isn't working out for you in your particular dev workflow. So .NET Watch will actually pick up on that, and you can see there it's saying hot reload is enabled, and it's all set to go. It's actually popping up the browser for me on my other screen, but I'll bring that over here. And there we go. Let me make this a little smaller so we can see. That looks good. All right, so hot reload is supposedly enabled. Well, let's see if we can give myself a little more space, and let's try it. So let's go into the pages folder. I'm going to turn on autosave. It's already on. And then let's go into the index.razor file, and let's add some excitement to this hello world. And look, no hands. And there it is.
Whoa.
It shows up. Now, that's because autosave kicked in. It saved the file. And then we calculated a IL diff for what needed to change. Like this is a component. So this component got compiled into a C# class, turned into some .NET IL. We figured out what exactly changed in the .NET IL and inserted that into the running app without restarting it. So it's actually really fast. Like it's faster than you can like even see sometimes. So like if I can change C# strings too. This is a C# string being passed into a component. Isn't this so cool? And then hands off, and it just updates. We can add component tags as well. Like let's add a counter. So no hands, and there it is. And of course, that counter works because it's just a counter component. All right, there we go. And why have one counter when you can have two counters? There's a second counter. And the thing I want you to notice is that the count from the initial counter didn't go away. It's still there. The app state was preserved. Whoa. This is really powerful. Like if you're deep into a complicated UI, like let's say you have a really big form and you've already navigated, done a bunch of stuff in the UI, and you want to tweak just one thing, hot reload enables you to do that without losing that app state. Or maybe you're like deep into a nested tree view and you don't want to lose where you're at and you just want to tweak the UI right there. Hot reload will let you do that. App state is preserved. You're not restarting the app anymore like hot reload currently does. It's just leaving the app running and patching the running bits.
So the big difference between, like, we've had .NET Watch over time, but .NET Watch actually like watched things and restarted your app all the time, right?
You restart the app, and then in more recent releases, like in .NET 5, it will even refresh the browser for you. Like it'll restart the app and refresh the browser so you get the new bits, which works pretty well for a lot of scenarios. Hot reload is faster, and it will preserve app state.
That is a big deal.
We can even mess around with our counters. Like let's make the counter, instead of incrementing by 1, let's make it increment by 2. That just saves. Then we click, click, click. Now we're going up by 2s instead of by 1s. There are some changes that are not supported by hot reload. There are some things that we can't actually like hot patch into the running app. For example, let's say I wanted to add a component parameter to this component. I'm going to add a property. There's my prop there. Let's call it increment amount, and let's default it to 1. And that already, you can already see that the thing there already did what I was about to show because I didn't type fast enough. So let's wire this up here. All right, so you can see that in some cases, that app actually did do a full restart. Like it detected that there was an edit that it couldn't actually hot reload into the app, and then .NET Watch falls back to doing a full restart and a browser refresh. So you can stay in the flow of doing your edits and getting the changes just showing up in the browser, but some changes might actually involve a restart. In fact, sometimes you might even want to force that. Here, let me do a change that actually will require a restart. I'm going to add a parameter attribute. Attributes are something that you can't hot reload, so that did a restart. Let me now change the initial value of the increment amount parameter to something like 5. Okay, so now I would expect that I should be incrementing by 5, and I am, and that's because it restarted. Why did that restart? Oh, that must be new. That's interesting. That's about demo failures. Okay, that actually, in the past, I've had that will not restart, and that would actually hot reload. Did I just? Okay, no, okay. I don't know why that did a full restart that previous time. So previously it was 5. I changed it to 4, and now you can see in the output it said that it hot reloaded that change. So the code to initialize this parameter is now 4 instead of 5. But if I click, it's still incrementing by 5. And you might be like, "Whoa, hold on, Dan. You told me this was like updating the app. Why is it now incrementing by 5 when it should be incrementing by 4?" And the reason is that we hot reloaded code that's initialization code. It's code that got updated, but it didn't get a chance to rerun, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
So if you're like mess around with like on initialized or like a constructor of something, sure, we can patch that code, but unless something actually happens to cause it to rerun, you won't actually see the impact of that new code, which is one thing you kind of have to think about when you're doing hot reload. If you're done edit and continue, this is a similar issue that occurs with edit and continue as well. So in a case like this, you might actually want to force a restart so that your initialization code reruns, and there's a gesture to do that. You can just hit Control R on the command line, and that will force a restart as well. So that's the falling back to restart, and then having a gesture to also force a restart if you want to. What else do I want to show you? Oh yeah, there's an error experience. Like if I accidentally leave off a semicolon. So I've introduced a compilation error. You get a nice warning in the browser letting you know, like, hey, I can't even build this, so I'm certainly not going to be able to hot reload that change. And then when I fix it, actually, let me add some clicks, and now reintroduce the error. Oh shoot! What? What happened? So fixing compilation errors should normally not cause the app to restart. Like it should, if the change was a hot reload would change, it should have worked. Actually, I'm not sure what happened there. Let me try that again. Let me try one more time. So we're fixed. Let me force a restart. Yeah. Oh, okay. I'm getting some sort of like file locking issue that causes
okay.
barf. Let me try again. Told you folks, we knew we were gonna have some in here. Now I'm not even getting my. Why am I not even getting my components? That's interesting. I think we're still locked.
Oh.
Let me try.
Yeah, there's magic going on, right? With the like.
I think there's something being held on to in .NET. This guy maybe kill some .NET processes.
Yeah.
No, you won't need to do this. We actually. Let's try it one more time. All right, so here we got the browser. Pop it back over. No, I'm not. Something's still not updating. Huh, that's interesting. If I force a hot reload, for some reason we are still locked in, like not even having the new code. Oh well. Maybe we could.
I promised some demo fails.
Yeah, I don't even. Is it cached? I don't even know what's going on with it. Like I restarted the app completely.
People are saying save the file.
Oh, maybe, but everything failed to save. Content the file is newer. Please compare version of the file. What the heck? I don't know what's going on. Let me try. Don't save. Try this. This is good. It's good testing. This is good. Like,
yeah.
Why do this? Why not just test on a live stream?
Well, people want to see the live previews, right? I mean, this is what you're working on.
Unresponsive? Like, what is going on?
Oh.
Maybe I could just open up from the command prompt again. I don't know what's going on. Let me try closing this. All my Visual Studio Code instances. Let's close that one. Let's close that one. Try it one more time. All right, here we go. Okay.
All right.
Are we good now? Okay, required assets. That looks promising. Still got some. Okay. Can you recognize that as a component?
Yeah, I can.
I know you can, but it doesn't look like the Studio Code is. Reloading. Well, we might have to move on. But yeah, I don't know what's going on here. That's really weird. I think
it was like working super beautifully for a while, and then
if I hit run, does it still do that too?
Is it it's just the right directory and everything?
Run. Okay. Oh, even that's showing the old code. It's not even recognizing the files as a thing. If I
people are saying the counter was a blank file.
Oh, is it? Oh, snap.
So,
Well, that's obviously why it's not a component anymore. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Okay, so we'll move on. I want to make sure that people see that you can also do CSS. So counter is no longer a component. That doesn't make sense now. That's why we're not getting it. Let's at least mess around. Like you can also do CSS changes. Like if we go into the main layout CSS, I think, and then let's say we want to play around with this gradient up at the top. Let's change the starting color to like white. And let's change this to gray. And as I just type, CSS changes also are getting pushed into the application. So you get that fast iterative workflow, the kind of workflow that you would usually have with like the browser dev tools, but just with your normal source files when you're doing hot reload as well. Wow. All right. Well, there's our first demo failure. That was great.
Well, that was cool, though. I mean, we figured it out. It was the file was overwritten. So
yeah. Okay. Now, how do I go back to here? Okay. All right, let's talk about cloud and cloud native. So we also, of course, want .NET to be able to run great in the cloud. It already does run really, really well. Where's my notes? I need my notes back up. Okay, there we go. So we're doing a bunch of investments to make .NET in the cloud even better. We're improving the observability of your cloud-hosted apps with OpenTelemetry, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a bit, and hopefully have a demo that works on that one. We've added support for client retries and load balancing to gRPC so that it works great in orchestrated environments. We're also making it easier to build minimum APIs, as we saw earlier. Those, of course, are the backbone of cloud-based applications. There's also a bunch of work ongoing to make sure that .NET runs great in containers. We're enabling even smaller container sizes when using .NET. We're making sure that .NET performs well under pressure in constrained environments. And we're also simplifying the configuration that you have to do with .NET to make it run well in orchestrated containers. Now, OpenTelemetry is kind of interesting. If you haven't heard of it, OpenTelemetry is a community effort to define a vendor-neutral spec for logs, metrics, and distributed traces. It's part of the Cloud Native Computing Foundation, the CNCF. The OpenTelemetry distributed tracing spec is now stable, and it's also supported in .NET and ASP.NET Core. With OpenTelemetry, you get cross-cutting a view of your app, and you can easily correlate your logs and your traces. We're also collaborating with the OpenTelemetry community on future observability efforts like metrics that you can find out more about at opentelemetry.io. And so I thought we'd take a quick look at what OpenTelemetry does for you. All right, so I have an app that one of my colleagues was kind enough to set up for me. Let me see if I have it open here. That's Car Checker. I need the trivia app. All right, so this is an app that's like a simple little trivia game, and it's got a client piece and a server piece. It's got proto files for gRPC services that it uses to communicate between the front end and the back end. And then it's using a bunch of CNCF technologies for dealing with traces and logs through OpenTelemetry. Now, to run this app, I'm actually going to run it from the command line because it's set up to use Thai. So let me go over here, and I will do Thai run. It's got everything's all set up as containers and all that stuff. That's that cloudy stuff. That's a technical way of referring to it. All right, there it goes. Let's go ahead and pop up the Thai dashboard so we can see what this app offers. Okay, so we got the client, we have a server, and then it's set up to use Zipkin, which is a CNCF technology for a system for dealing with distributed traces. And it's also got SEQ, which is a logging backend, also in the CNCF. But let's just take a look at the app first. Here's our little trivia front end, little Blazor front end, and then we have a little bit of UI also on the server where we can see the score of anyone who's playing the current trivia game. So let's play some trivia. What is your name? Dan. Let's start this. Okay, first question. What does the G in gRPC stand for? And I'm going to look at the chat. I'm using my one.
Let's get
my helpline.
Votes in.
I don't know. Who's helping me? I happen to know for a fact that it is not Google. Like that is not the Google RPC protocol. gRPC, general purpose, or good. Google. No, it is not Google. Yeah, right. Good. It actually originally I'm told it stood for gRPC. It is the G in gRPC stands for gRPC. It's the gRPC remote procedure call. It's one of those like inception things.
Yeah.
Although I hear more recently they've decided to change what the G means with every release. Like there's like a Wikipedia page for what the G means every time they update the release or the protocols. So gRPC, I believe, is the correct answer, and it looks like I got a point, and the real-time dashboard is telling me so. Okay, what is not hard in computer science? Off by one errors, naming things, building a gRPC implementation, or cache invalidation. Well, that one's easy because I mean with .NET, building a gRPC implementation is just trivial. So there, okay, I got 2 out of 2. All right, so that's our simple little trivia game. The point though is not so much the app, but the telemetry and the observability that we get into this app. So I'm now going to go take a look at Zipkin. This is a TCP address. I'm going to switch this to be HTTP. And there's the Zipkin UI. And I'm going to run the query so we can look at all our traces. Here's the one we just did not too long ago. And there you can see we get this really nice visualization of everything that happened in our app. Like we can see the original client request to start the trivia game. That's where I like typed in my name. Here's where the client is then making a request to server to get all the questions, and the questions get streamed back to the client over gRPC. And then this final request is the like, get me my score. Like what did this user score with all those question answers? So you get a nice visualization to what's going on. And then there's this trace ID up top. Remember these last 4 digits, like 08 DF, okay? We're gonna go now look at SEQ, which is our logging backend. And let me find like here's the trivia score request. Let's look at this. Yeah, 08DF was the trace ID that we had before. I can now filter based on that trace ID. And now here's all the logs just for that one game, that one sequence of actions. So this is what OpenTelemetry gives you, is a cross-cutting distributed tracing and an ability to correlate your logs to those traces. And the way this was enabled was using .NET support for OpenTelemetry. We can go look in the project files for the client, and here you can see it's using all of the OpenTelemetry instrumentation packages to instrument into the hosting layer, into ASP.NET Core, into the HTTP stack, into the gRPC client, and then it's got an exporter for Zipkin and the logging extension for SEQ, and all those are just getting wired up in Startup. So that's how all of the instrumentation is being added to my app, and then the specific exporter for Zipkin. So that's how you get all that. And this actually is available for .NET 5 today. You don't need to wait for .NET 6, although all the work, like the spec didn't actually go stable until after .NET 5 had shipped and all these packages came out later. So it's kind of part of the .NET 5 wave. And of course, it will just keep getting better with .NET 6. So that's a little view into OpenTelemetry. Let me make sure that I shut that down so I don't have a whole bunch of containers ready.
Very cool. And some of the stuff you're showing here, we've done shows, like we did a show on OpenTelemetry, and we did one on, we've done a few shows on Project Pi, which are showing there. So for people that are interested in microservices development and orchestration and all this stuff, like there's some longer shows on those too.
Cool. Yeah, go back and check that out for the deeper dive. What about our servers? So we're adding support for HTTP 3. HTTP, I feels like we just did HTTP 2, but HTTP is just around the corner. HTTP 3 solves an important issue that can happen with HTTP 2. HTTP 2 moved everything like onto a single connection, so you could like tunnel a bunch of HTTP requests over a single connection, which was really nice. But one thing that can happen with HTTP 2 is an issue called head of line blocking, where if something happens like at the TCP layer where packets get lost, then that can gum up the traffic for all your other requests. HTTP 3 addresses that by adding a new transport called Quick, which is UDP based, so it doesn't have that same problem. We will support HTTP 3 in .NET 6. We're starting the work now. Now it's a little early because the HTTP 3 spec, I believe, isn't even fully completed yet, but we're trying really hard now with ASP.NET Core to stay ahead of the curve with the latest iterations of the web-based protocols. We're also adding support for shadow copying, a form of shadow copying for IIS-based deployments in .NET 6. Now, you already have a way to deploy to IIS, of course, with .NET 5 and earlier. There's even a feature where you can like deploy an app offline file to shut things down so that you can deploy your files. One of the common issues with .NET is once the app is running, the files get locked, and you need a way to sort of unlock them so that you can publish your files. And there is a way to do that with standard high availability patterns with ASP.NET Core today. But for some simple scenarios where you just want to FTP a bunch of bits onto a server, it can be more troublesome. It can be problematic to deploy in those types of environments. So we are adding a form of shadow copying in .NET 6, where you'll be able to just enable some options in your publishing settings so that you can deploy the files, have them be pushed into a different folder, and then have them swapped in. So look for that in upcoming .NET 6 previews. I know they're definitely looking for feedback on how well that works for people that have been asking for shadow copying support. Let's move on. Performance. Oh yeah, so lots of great performance work is happening in .NET 6. A lot of work has actually already happened. For HTTP APIs, we're trying to make them as pay for play as possible. We're already seeing a 5% request per second gain, throughput gain, for raw middleware in .NET 6. That's as measured on Linux. The new minimum API programming model that I showed you earlier, one of the additional benefits of that model, besides being simpler, is that it's also really fast. There's very little overhead in that model. It's twice as fast, actually, as the equivalent code in API controllers, and pretty close to being on par with raw middleware scenarios. So great performance boost there. Faster JOT authentication is coming in .NET 6. That's thanks to an upgrade to our JOT token support, to the JOT token package. MVC is also getting faster in .NET 6. MVC on Linux in particular is now currently 12% faster for throughput, thanks to faster logging. Every platform is a little different, and there was some like logging ID that we were generating that on Linux just happened to be particularly slow, and we fixed that and got a huge perf boost across the board when running on Linux environments. There's a faster memory cache in .NET 6 that gave us a 10% boost already on the cache tech and power benchmark. Really big drops in memory usage for HTTPS connections. This was done using 0 byte reads. We're actually seeing a 40% working set reduction for JSON, our JSON HTTPS middleware benchmarks. We're doing a bunch of perf work on HTTP2 because HTTP2, even though HTTP3 is coming, it's not here quite yet. But we're improving the HTTP client to have better connection management for HTTP2 scenarios. And also we sped up gRPC by speeding up protobuf. Protobuf is actually about 20% faster now with .NET 6. This is just the beginning. Like, I'm just telling you the stuff that's like already there in the latest .NET 6 previews. Of course, there'll be a lot more perf work that will come as the release progresses.
And usually that's kind of how things work, right? We add in more of the features and the bigger things, and then over time the perf like continues through the like a lot of time you'll see more of the perf towards the end of the dev cycle.
Yep. Yeah.
So, cool.
MVC. What's happening in MVC? Well, we're adding support for CSS isolation. This was actually a feature that we added for Blazor originally. This is a way to have a CSS file that is scoped to a particular component, or now to a particular view or page. So your styles don't impact other parts of the application. It's done at build time, and we did it for Blazor, and now we're bringing it to the rest of the ASP.NET Core stack. We're adding support for streaming so that you can use async enumerable without having any buffering in the stack. That's being plumbed all the way down through the serialization layer. So that's coming soon. That's I think the system text JSON work just finished, and we're just now plumbing that all the way through for Preview 4. So hopefully with the Preview 4 release, you'll be able to see that.
So that would be for like streaming a file result kind of thing, or streaming, what would you use?
So like if you have like an async yield pattern in your, like you're synchronously enumerating a bunch of results. Right now we have to buffer all that at the serialization layer in order before we actually write it out. With this pattern, you'll be able to just write out chunks as they get yielded from the control action. Like if you return async enumerable result. Async disposable, we're adding support for in .NET 6. We're gonna move to Bootstrap 5 as soon as it ships a stable release. I think they're up to beta 3 now. So we'll update our Bootstrap styling across the board, and a bunch of improvements to our Open API support, like a bunch of bug fixes and just usability improvements for folks that are doing HTTP APIs with Open API. I thought I would quickly show the CSS isolation. If you haven't seen it for Blazor, it's kind of fun. I'll show it for MVC now. So let me pull up my MVC. This is actually a Razor Pages app, which is just based on MVC.
While you're doing this, I just want to say this is really cool to see. I know we talk a lot about the absolute newest, shiniest stuff. Here's some stuff we're doing for microservices. Here's stuff we're doing with Blazor and all this. We've got a lot of developers that are building MVC and Razor Pages applications. And it's good to remind everybody, like, we're continuing to improve those. And, you know, like, I don't know. It's cool to see new features coming up.
Oh, yeah. Like, it's part of our web UI story. Like, I think, like I work on Blazor a lot, obviously. So a lot of people ask me, like, do I need to migrate my MVC or Razor Pages code to Blazor? And the answer is no. Like, that's actually not what Blazor was meant for at all. Blazor specifically for client-side UI. It was meant to fill a gap. Like, if you felt the need to write some Angular code or React code or some JavaScript code that ran in the browser, if you wanted to do stuff in the browser, you didn't have any way to do that with .NET, and Blazor filled that hole. But on the server, there's still plenty of scenarios where you want to server render some HTML or server render some UI, and that's what you use MVC and Razor Pages for. So it's to have the full stack story, you need both. And actually, they're both intended to be used together. And so, of course, we're going to continue to invest across the stack on the server and on the client. Okay, so here's my little Razor Pages app, and it looks lovely, but I'd like to add some more color. So let's open up, I'm going to open up the site.css file. This is just the global CSS file for the application. And I'm going to add a style for the H1 tags and change it to hot pink. We'll save that. And there we go. Okay, so now it's hot pink. And we've got a couple pages in this app that we have the privacy page as well. And that the H1 tag there are also updated to be hot pink. Now, to use CSS isolation, all you need to do is use a particular convention where you define a cshtml.css file that's a companion to your Razor page or your MVC view. And now any CSS styles that are put in this file will be scoped to just that particular page or view. Now, currently, I don't have anything in this file, but let's go ahead and add some styles so that this privacy page has its own styling. Now, I could use like a CSS selector to specifically pick out this H1 tag for this page. But instead, because this is isolated, I can just add another H1 selector here and change the color to light blue. And we'll save that. And in this case, I have to actually restart the app because it needs to rebuild. And after we do that, now if I go to the privacy page, we can see that only the privacy page is picking up the light blue styling for the H1 tags, while the rest of the H1 tags in my app continue to be hot pink. So that's CSS isolation, now available for MVC and Razor Pages.
That is handy. Yeah, I've done that with like page-based classes and all kinds of stuff, but it's nice to just have that and being able to organize it like that with the nested CSS.
Particularly if you're like using Razor class library style approach to package up a bunch of pages that you want to reuse someplace, you can now package the styles with those pages and have them be isolated to just those pages so they don't pollute the rest of the application. That's also something that you can do. Cool. Okay. SPA support. Yeah, that's another. We still also do support the JavaScript story. Like we have lots of people that are using existing JavaScript front-end frameworks to build ASP.NET Core apps. We want to continue to invest in and improve our SPA story. So we have a number of goals with this effort. We want to continue to have a really great dev experience with popular SPA frameworks. You should be able to just create an app and run it and publish it and have that all work without having to do a whole lot of setup. We'd like to do a better job of keeping our SPA templates up to date. Right now, we update our SPA templates for Angular and React whenever we release, which right now is once a year. And that means that we're usually one, if not two, maybe even three versions behind on some of these SPA frameworks. We'd like to do a better job at that, though, and actually keeping up to date with the latest versions of those frameworks. We'd also like to unblock people who want to use other SPA frameworks than what we ship out of the box, make that easier to do. Like if you want to use Vue, or if you want to use Svelte, or you want to use Banana, like whatever the new SPA framework is. Yes, by the way, Banana is that's the new job.
You heard it here first.
Heard it here today. You should be able to do that with ASP.NET Core. And we'd like to enable an ecosystem of community templates, actually, and community participation in updating the SPA templates. So the approach that we're planning to do is, we're going to try to ship the SPA templates faster, try and decouple them a little bit more from the SDK so we can ship them at a faster cadence, or maybe just ship the faster updates in the SDK. We're doing a bunch of infrastructure work to automate keeping the templates up to date with the latest versions of this front-end frameworks. We're also trying to work on establishing a common pattern for these SPA apps that can then be reused across whatever front-end framework you happen to be using. And one approach that we're looking at for doing that is actually leveraging the Webpack dev server's proxying support. Today, when you use ASP.NET Core with a front-end framework, we set it up so that we actually proxy requests during development through the ASP.NET Core app to the dev server for that front-end framework, like to the Angular dev server or the React dev server, so that it still feels like one app, but you still get the functionality of the dev server for that particular framework. The idea here is, what if we switch that around? Like it turns out a lot of these front-end frameworks already have proxying support. What if we put the front-end dev server in front and then proxy to the ASP.NET Core backend? That's a little bit more canonical in terms of how these apps are typically set up, and enables us some additional flexibility. And I have a little prototype here that I can show you of what that looks like. Let me open that up. And this one. Okay. So in this solution, I've got a few different apps. I've got, we've got Angular, we got React, and then there's the prototype bits, and then we also have a Vue project in there, which is cool. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and hit F5 to show you how this app works. Now, when this starts up, it's going to start up the ASP.NET Core process, and then the ASP.NET Core process is going to try and check to see, is the Angular dev server running? Then you better catch it. No, sorry. If it's not, then it starts it up, and you can see here it's starting up the Angular dev server as well. So that's actually very similar to what we do today. But instead, and here's the actual running app. But instead of the browser being pointed at the ASP.NET Core app, being pointed at localhost 5001, which is where the ASP.NET Core app is currently listening, you can see that it's actually pointing at 5002, and that's where the Angular server is listening. So we're proxying through the Angular dev server. And then, everything still continues to work. Like we can click on our counter, the fetch data page pulls down the weather forecast data from the ASP.NET Core API. But this has a couple of benefits. Like if we go look at the code for the app, the project is really simple. Like here's that same client app folder. This is just the Angular template code. But in here, there is in package.json, we can see that we're setting up the normal proxy config settings so that we can proxy to the ASP.NET Core backend. And then when we look in the startup file for the actual ASP.NET Core part of this app, there's no like SPA anything in here. Like I don't need any like SPA specific middleware to handle proxying. Like my code is untouched. Very clean. And because this pattern is very common with front-end frameworks, it's really easy to duplicate with other frameworks. When the dev, Javier was the one who put this together, when he showed this to me, I was like, well, can we do Vue? And he's like, oh yeah, sure. And so we copied the Angular project and created this Vue app project. All we did is then we just ran the Vue CLI to change, let me give myself a little more room here, to change the client app folder to have Vue code. We then had to go figure out in Vue how you configure the proxy settings, because it's a little different for each of the frameworks. In Vue, they have their own JavaScript file, but there's the proxying set up to tell Vue to please proxy to the ASP.NET Core backend. And yeah, that was it. So now if we set this startup project, actually I need to stop my previous app. Make sure everything is terminated. Okay, that one's done. Let me close where's the Angular one?
So this is configured. The idea is this is configured in the template, and the launching is done via Webpack and the front end CLI, and then it kind of it's what actually kicks off, what launches.
Oh, you're still just like before. You're still running the .NET app, the ASP.NET Core app. It has a little bit of infrastructure in it that then looks to see if the dev server is available. And if it's not, then it has a little bit of like logic in it to know how to start up the corresponding dev server for the front-end framework that it's in. So that's the little piece. And we do a little bit of extra magic to make the ASP.NET Core HBS development certificate also work with the front-end dev server. So we do that too. Then it just fires up the front-end dev server, which is now going to proxy to the ASP.NET Core backend.
Okay.
It's the reverse of what we do today.
Yeah.
And as a result, it's really easy to add, like, if you want to do view, it took us like less than 30 minutes to create a view app using this pattern. So we're looking at updating our SPA templates to use this pattern in .NET 6. And hopefully this will then enable us to start a community effort where we can have a whole bunch of templates that support Vue or Banana, Pineapple, whatever app we want to support. So yeah, so that's SPA in .NET 6. It's coming. Let us know what you think about that. If you like that pattern. If you don't, that's cool too. Let us know, and hopefully we'll make SPA better. Okay, what else do we got? All right, last. Wait, how much time I got? Oh my God, I'm supposed to be done.
I know. You have a meeting in 3 minutes. Oh, look at all this stuff.
There's a lot of Blazor stuff coming. Maybe we'll save a bunch of this stuff for our future talk. Yeah, we are doing a lot of Blazor things. Hot reload, you already saw. WebAssembly AOT is coming in .NET 6. Maybe I'll do that as my last demo. I know we showed it also at the last talk as well. We're also doing a whole bunch of component model improvements that we unfortunately don't have time to go through all of these, but there's a lot of great stuff coming to Blazor. Go check out the ACE Midcore roadmap issue and look through the GitHub issues. We're doing a bunch of really great work. Performance is getting faster for WebAssembly in .NET 6, even if you don't use AOT. Like the interpreter itself is already like 10% faster for rendering from .NET 5 to .NET 6, and JSON serialization is 20% faster in .NET 6 from .NET 5. So that's good. But of course, a real big perf boost is coming with AOT. I have one more demo that I'll squeeze in here. So I for my demo, I think Safia did like an image processing demo, which was super cool. I took Conway's Game of Life. Popular little like box-based simulation. This was actually based on a Blazor app, a Blazor port of Conway's Game of Life that was done by this gentleman here. I just took his Blazor app and I ported it to WebAssembly and updated it to .NET 6. Thank you, David. He has a nice blog post on it as well. And let's go ahead. I'll run it twice. I'm going to run it using just .NET Run, which will use the interpreter. So it's not AOT. I need to run this server. All right. And I think this is 100 by 100 grid. If you haven't seen Conway's Game of Life and you're like, what the heck is Conway's Game of Life? It's like a simulation of a bunch of little blocks that have a bunch of rules that they either live or die based on how many blocks is around them. And so it makes these really kind of cool patterns and shapes. And it's been shown to be like a full computer. Like you can do full compute using this model. Okay. Wow. And I need a little more space. How do I get this to be?
Yeah. So depending on the a cell's neighbors depend on whether it will flip colors.
Okay. So down the bottom, hopefully you can see the count. Like this is how fast it's able to do the generations. And, a couple of seconds, a couple of generations per second, not too bad. So all these blocks like live or die based on a calculation that involves every single grid in this space. Okay, so that's without AOT. Now I enabled AOT for this application and ran it. Now there are some trade-offs with AOT. The app does get bigger and it does take a while to AOT. Like I think it's like 3 minutes to run AOT on this app, which is a thing. Hopefully we'll be able to make that a little bit faster. But you do it basically like on publish. It's like an optimization step you do when you're publishing your app. And if we run the published version of this app, this guy, and let me bring that back up the browser. Woo! Lots more jitter.
Wow.
It's like, I think 5 times faster when I was doing some little tests. Like it's just ripping through the generations. In some cases, depending on what you're doing, like there's still a bunch of DOM manipulation happening in this app. So that the DOM manipulation doesn't get impacted by AOT, but any CPU compute intensive stuff gets a dramatic perf improvement. This is like 4 or 5 times faster. If you're just doing raw compute, you can see 10x improvements in some cases. So
it's no longer interpreting and running like the IL and a VM. It's actually compiled to WebAssembly, native WebAssembly code.
Yep. And I'll show you that. I know I mentioned that there is a trade-off with download size, so I'll show you that real quick. Let's do a refresh. I think I have to actually clear out the cache, clear the site data, and let's do a full refresh again. So the compressed Deployed app size now is 3.7 megabytes. Like a default Blazor app in .NET 6 comes in at about 2 megabytes. That's including all the CSS styles, the JavaScript infrastructure bits. So you get about a 2x size increase with when you AOT the app. So that's something you also need to consider. It will impact load time. You're trading off some load time and build time to have faster CPU, faster compute performance during runtime.
Okay.
But that's AOT. Yeah.
Well, as we're wrapping up, because I know we're about out of time, we have a monthly Blazor community stand up, and so we can dig deeper into some of these Blazor things. But one of the most important questions, people have been wanting your desktop or your wallpaper.
I think I got it from Chris Sainty. I think he's the one who gave it to me. Like this one, right? It is. Yeah.
That's
I think
amazing.
Chris gave it to me. I don't remember where he got it from, but yeah. So ping him on. He's on Twitter. Yeah. I don't know if I can. I'll ask Chris.
I thought he was on earlier today. He might have been on.
Probably is. Yeah. I think it was. If it's not him, everyone's going to be pinging him and be like, "Chris, we want the wallpaper," and he'll be like,
"Yeah,
what are you talking about?" I think it was him. But,
wow.
I'm happy to share it. I didn't create it. I can't take credit for it, but it is pretty nice.
Well, this is very cool. I will also share the link again to your blog post, which goes through all this stuff and tells you how you can try it out and get started and everything. So this is amazing, Dan. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. Lots more coming. Stay tuned in .NET 6.
All right. Thanks for watching.